All right, everybody, welcome to Product 101
Awesome.
with Matt and Catherine. We're very excited for this part. So, like we've mentioned during the other segments, it used to be a very limited selection of surfaces where now, the world has opened up and the products have opened up and there's so many different ways that you can print a file.
Absolutely.
It's very important that your editing style fits your photography, that your monitor represents what you're getting back from the lab, and then also that the surface that you're choosing represents all those things and you're very happy with that output.
And you understand each of those mediums too.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for adding that.
Absolutely.
And to make it like really simple, if you think about, the color gamut of a photo luster print, let's just say that that's that big.
Right.
Okay, so then you go into the fine art world. We have 5 beautiful fine art papers, we have our fine art canvas, all the things, and then that gamut gets to be really big. So even with that, you have to understand that they're not going to match.
Right.
They're not. Now, they should be reasonably close and not be completely off. But understand that when you're looking at different surfaces, different textures, different printing methods, different bases to start with, when you're looking at the fine art papers, our smooth matte is going to be a much more warm base than, say, the aquarelle rag.
Right.
And that's just part of the beauty of these papers. So we're going to go through, show you a bunch of different comparisons, all printed from the same file. We did not tweak this file at all. It went as is all the way through. And again, we want to emphasize, we print for you.
Yes.
We are a custom professional lab, so we want you to be able to have the editing style that works for your business.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'll stop talking now. Well, I'm not gonna because I like talking. Okay, so I'm gonna hand these off to Catherine. So what we're looking at here first, this is going to be our photo luster print. Now the photo luster, again, is the base. It is the foundation of the print. This is how you're going to calibrate. This is how you're gonna do your comparisons from the print to the monitor. So that's our photo luster. Again, we can download the ICC profile, the soft proofing, all that on this one. Now we're going to move on to Deep Matte. Okay, Deep Matte again is a traditional photo paper. If you haven't seen the Deep Matte, it's a very different look, very different feel. It's almost like silk when you touch it. It does not reflect hardly at all, which is going to change that immediately because you're not reflecting off the surface.
Exactly.
The opposite side of that, I'll let you set a couple down here. We're going to move on to the Fuji Pearl. So this is a very high gloss. So when you're looking at the Deep Matte compared to the Pearl, that is going to change it just because of the gloss on one and not on the other. Now, her skin tones are beautiful on these, but there's differences between them because of the way that gloss is on the paper. Now we're going to move on to a luster print that has our protective laminate. If you haven't used a protective laminate, it's fantastic. It's very hard to damage. It does have some UV protectant in it, but when you are putting something over the top of a print, whether it be laminate, luster coating, if you're doing press cards and doing the soft touch laminate over the top, whenever you cover the surface with something, you are going to change how that surface interacts with light. So keeping that in mind, that you have to think about those things when you're adding different surfaces and laminates to the top. We're going to move on to our fine art canvas. Okay, so again, this is a fine art printing process. I believe this is 9 colors in the ink. Catherine's moving that back and forth. That's going to have the really fine texture on it, which again is going to change how the light interacts with the surface of the print. Now on the fine art canvas, you can choose to laminate that. You can do either a semi-gloss laminate or a matte laminate. And what did I say about 2 minutes ago?
That it goes over the print?
It goes over the print, it definitely does. But it also changes how that print is going to interact with the viewer and how that reflects the light back and forth, especially from a semi-gloss to a matte. Okay, so I was talking about the different fine art prints. So the one that Catherine's holding right now is an example of our smooth matte. So the smooth matte is very, very popular. It's a beautiful paper. It is very smooth in texture. It has a warmer base. So when you're thinking about the background of the paper, which is the white of the paper being warm, what is that going to do to your file?
Right. It's going to make it a little bit warmer.
Absolutely. Okay. So hold on to that. Let's just put this up next to it. So this is the aquarelle rag. Okay. A little bit different texture. Some would call it a little bit more watercolor-esque with the rag and the torchon. But again, there are going to be different weights, different white points, so there is going to be subtle differences between that. Speaking of torchon, do you have 8 hands over there?
We can make it work.
Okay, so what Catherine's holding up right now is actually the 3 different uncoated fine art papers. So we have torchon, closest to me, we have the aquarelle rag in the middle, and we have the smooth matte on her left. So you can see subtle differences between the skin tones on there, and that's to be expected. The color of the paper is different, and I don't think the camera could capture it right now, but a really good way to make that comparison is looking at the back. You know, when you're looking at the paper tone and the base color, there's differences with that. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Harder to see on the screen.
It is. Okay, let's move on to our coated options for fine art. So this is going to be our Baryta. Yep, exactly. And this coated versus uncoated, this is going to have a little bit more of a semi-gloss appearance to it, a little bit more like luster. And then we also have our metallic, which if you haven't tried either of these papers, again, going back to my super high-tech description of color gamut, these are going to be the big ones. They're going to be a 10-color printing process, beautiful color reproduction, but the metallic tends to be a little bit warmer of a base. But they're gorgeous. The color reproduction in these particular papers is just fantastic.
And something to note about that metallic is it is going to have that silver undertone. So we talked about the whites. This is going to be more of that silver kind of shimmery coming through instead of the plain stark white.
Yeah, and it almost looks dimensional. Like when you turn it, it's almost like you just reach right into it. Okay. I know a lot. We're giving you a lot of information today, but this is really good to take one file and you see all these comparisons.
Absolutely.
Now, metals. Metals are super popular. They just keep growing and growing in popularity. Now, if you haven't been to a trade show event or seen us in person, and you're looking at the website trying to decipher what does that mean for a white base or a clear base, Catherine, I want you to hold on to these.
All right.
Okay. And then Connor's going to zoom in. So when you're looking at white base, first of all, if you think that the metal is just the surface and then a coating of white goes over the top of it, which is a really dumbed down way to explain everything that happens here, but essentially that has a polyester surface on it that allows that dye to transfer into it. But what the white does is it blocks the metal texture completely. Now that's the one in her left hand. The one in her right hand, excuse me, is going to be a clear base. So what that's going to allow is for the texture of the metal to come through. Okay, so anything that is whitish is going to basically become the surface of the metal. Did I describe that well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So then when you're turning that and rotating it, it's going to interact differently with the light depending on how much light tone is in the image. And we're going to show you another one here with a white background, and it'll really show you the difference. But this is a base explanation of white base versus clear base, and there's going to be different glosses in those, but understanding that when you're looking at that, if you're choosing clear base, you are going to have the texture of the metal coming through.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's move on to acrylic. So I'll have you show that one to the camera. Okay, so this starts out life as a high gloss inkjet print. It has adhesive laminate applied to it, and that's how it allows the acrylic to stick to the print itself. And on the back, it has a styrene mount on it. So again, even if you put this next to the metal, which I kind of think they serve kind of a similar spot in the market, the way the light interacts and goes through the sides, the top, straight at it with an acrylic, it's going to change how you're viewing that. So if you're comparing an acrylic print to a luster print, you're going to have subtle differences in that just because of that reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's move on to our wood print. So wood basically is going to, the tone of the wood is going to take the space of the white in the image. So you are going to have a very warm representation of the file, in my opinion, from a wood print. Also, it's good to note, and if you look on the website, it's going to tell you the same thing, you're going to have subtle differences and subtle, you know, the grain.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for, coming through the image. So if you are ordering a portrait file, which this is, if this grain right here happened to be right here, that is going to be over her face. So making sure that when you're ordering the wood print, that you're educating your clients and yourself to know that that is part of the detail and the charm of these, that they have that texture coming through. Everybody sticking with us?
Still with us.
Awesome. Okay. And then definitely last but not least here, our albums and books are super popular. But again, when you're looking at the differences in the printing options, the covers of the books and albums do start off as a high gloss inkjet print, and then they have that beautiful soft touch laminate added to them that everybody knows and loves. So that is going to be a different process than the interior pages, you know, depending on the surface that you pick for the inside, which can be, you know, photo luster, deep matte, premium luster, smooth matte. So as you're looking at all these different options, like Catherine said it so eloquently, A to Z.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, we have all the things. So let's put that to the side and let's talk through some of the options here for, or I should say the same options for a different style.
Perfect.
So that was outdoor.
Outdoor.
Very warm in color tone and everything. Now we're going to show off a family that was done indoor. So let's start, so we go in the same order here. So we have the photo luster and the deep matte next to each other. Okay, indoor, studio. I believe this was probably natural light in the studio. It looks like it is to me, but really, really light. It's it's what I would consider a high key image. Okay,
absolutely.
so that is going to interact differently with surfaces. So there's our Fuji Pearl compared to the deep matte again. So again, thinking of that that high gloss versus the very flat or very silky feeling. And then moving on to the luster print with the protective laminate over the top of it. Again, each time you put something over the top of a print, it's going to interact differently with the viewer than if it did not have that over the top.
Yep.
Okay. Now here is where you're really going to pick up on the differences within the fine art printing. So we're going to put that in your left hand. That's going to be our smooth matte. And then, I'm going to make sure I have all these prepped here. This is going to be our aquarelle rag. Now, if Connor zooms in on that, this is really going to point out the difference between the base color of the paper, because this has a strong white background in it. So again, smooth matte on Catherine's left, aquarelle rag on the right. You can tell that the aquarelle rag it's a cleaner, it's a more bright paper. And then let's add our torchon into there for our comparison. Okay, so again, the three uncoated options for fine art. Torchon's going to be closest to me, aquarelle rag in the middle, and then smooth matte on the left. This is a good test for your hands here this morning. We should have given you more coffee. Okay, and then this one will go in your left hand, so that's going to be our Photo Rag Baryta, and then metallic on her right. Now, if you rotate that back and forth, you may be able to catch some of that metallic in there. Again, both beautiful options, but understand that there is going to be some differences, you know, with the base color of the paper, and understanding that when you're ordering it. And that's just part of the coolness of it. You know, it makes it more fun. Okay. Here's our fine art canvas. Again, this does not have a laminate over the top of it, but understanding that if you do the semi-gloss laminate or the matte laminate, that is going to change, you know, slightly the appearance, not a ton, but if you're going to delve into color management, understanding that. So what you're getting back is what your expectation is. And then this is going to be the good one here for metal. So let's put that in your left hand. Okay, so we talked a little bit about white base versus clear base. So again, the white base is in Catherine's left hand. The white base of the metal itself is covering up the texture. Now I'm going to hand her a clear base. Now this one you can really see the difference because the metal is taking over for essentially all of the white, or the majority of the white in the background. If you love that look, fantastic.
Yeah.
If you don't want to have that texture coming through, understanding that you're going to want to look at one of the white base as an option there. And those both happen to be in the high gloss finish. You can do a matte finish in the clear base, and you can also do a semi-gloss and a matte in the white base. I don't mean to be talking over the top of you.
It's all good.
Anything to add? Am I
No,
forgetting
you're
things
doing
here?
great.
Okay. And then we're moving on to our acrylic. Again, it's going to start life as a high gloss inkjet print with a 1/4 inch acrylic over the top of it. And again, with light coming in from different directions, like in this room that we're in right now, there's a lot of light in here. It's bouncing all over, so it's coming in from the sides, top, bottom, all the things. Where if it's in a living room or in a space that's darker in your studio and you're looking at that, it would most likely look very, very different. So again, going back to that word that we said in one of the first segments, consistency. When you're unboxing, when you're looking at things, when you're editing, color managing, to be consistent with your space and setting yourself up for success is very important. And then we're going to end on this one here. Again, a great example. So this is the wood print again, and as you're looking at this, you're going to notice that that grain, is showing through, and that's mostly because the background of this image is white. So it's really allowing a lot of that wood texture, I almost said metal, allowing that wood texture to come through. And it looks beautiful,
Yes.
but just making sure that you understand how this is going to look compared to a luster print. It's going to be warmer. You're going to see the grain. The skin tones are going to be warmer. They're not going to match the photo luster again. So this is a really, really helpful way to look through all these different prints. And we really hope that this has helped with you learning and maybe not being scared of color management.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything to add before we sign off here?
No, I
Catherine?
think we've got everything. But yeah, don't be scared. Just know that every product is going to be a little different, and just having that education, not only for yourself, but also for your clients, I think is really key.
Yeah, absolutely. And if somebody needs additional help with color, where do they go?
They can contact customer service.
They can, yes. And we have an amazing customer service team. Every time we go to a trade show, it's always the compliments of how patient and helpful the CS team is. So thank you for all you do. Thanks for joining us today. We really hope this has been helpful for you.
Thank you.